apologies to anyone online, and particularly you, Karen, for the delay. Thank you for the very nice morning tea, which was the cause of the delay. I hate to say that, Karen, but it was wonderful. So thank you very much. And Paula, if perhaps I just acknowledge the kind words that you mentioned to those that are involved in the committee, which also included you, Karen, as well. So we'll get to some more comments about the committee a wee bit later on when we deal with the a report still to come and open. Right, to crack on, could I please, Tracy, you talking about the organisational improvement report, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. So the report today, item 10 on your agenda, is the Organisational Improvement Report. So this report is the report we bring to you with regards to audits that we get done by Audit New Zealand, PwC, Waka Kotahi, and any other audits that the organisation receives. So the thing to note just on this report today is there are still quite a few outstanding matters that we're waiting, obviously, for the next Audit New Zealand report to be delivered, and we'll be able to hopefully get some of those resolved. So I'll take the report as read and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Tracy. Really important that we keep ourselves in tabs on this. Members, is there any questions that you would like to raise with Tracy on this report? Obviously, we're keen that Norday and Clarence are able to clear what you've done. Thank you for the fact that you believe you've achieved those, Tracy, and indeed that they will be cleared. So we do look forward to the work of the internal audit. Of Audit New Zealand, the external auditor. Karen.
Tracy, can you remind me, why does this report only include the Audit New Zealand recs rather than the recommendations from the other various internal audit reports?
It doesn't. It just happens to have the ones that we know that are about to be resolved, and the ones that were I guess, of more of a higher risk and that sort of thing. So all of the others we have in the organisational register itself, with all of the other ones from PwC or Waka Kotahi or things like that. But those ones aren't as risky. So we bring the whole report to you once a year with every single thing on it. But for the regular reporting, we only bring those of a higher risk, or in particular today, we wanted just to highlight ones that we were hopefully going to have resolved in the next audit.
Okay, yeah, I'm just, it surprises me that there's no high risk recommendations coming out of the PwC audit, particularly the cyber one that we received last.
Yeah, so that'll be in the next report. So we've only just received that, obviously, from PwC. So that will be
phase one.
Oh, phase one. Okay, sure. I'll check because I thought that had been included actually. I'll make sure.
So if we could just clarify that.
Yep.
Once a year we get the full report, but each meeting you would report on high risk recommendations.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And actually it does reflect that we wouldn't want to lose sight of some of those key PW reports, and particularly if we're dealing with one or two like cyber security. I guess we need to consider a PX paper on that, given the sensitivity around that. That's fine. Thank you for that question, Karen. That's really good and helpful, insightful. There being no other questions, can I move to the resolution, please, which we receive the report? Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Maxine. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise their hands. Those against? It's carried. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Don't go away, Tracy. Set piece.
Come back.
We're in your hands. Norday, you're welcome to come to the table too. I suspect we want to hear from you and Clarence. Is he gone? Oh no, he's behind there. Oh, I couldn't. Oh, sorry, I couldn't. You were hiding. I thought the Clarence. So both of you are welcome to the table as well. Good to have you here. Tracy, we're in your hands.
Okay, so this report today is around our annual report that we're writing at the moment, and obviously the audit that goes with it, and thirdly around our management representation letter. So I'll just walk through each of those three things. So first of all, the annual report itself, from a staffing perspective, that's been completed and is now sitting with the audit team, and I will when I hand over to the Audit New Zealand, they'll let you know where they are with the plan from there. We are still aiming to try and have this audit completed by December. So that's what we're working towards. The letter that you've got today, and you'll see that we've changed the recommendation just to spell this out a little bit clearer for elected members. What this letter of representation is, when we do the final audit, which hopefully, as I mentioned, will be in December, the current council via the Mayor and the CE has to sign off a letter of representation to Audit New Zealand that everything inside is obviously all of the things that we, as you've seen in this report, all the general responsibilities and things like that have been done. Because we are going from one council to another, what we have done today is basically, because most of that information is coming from this current council, is make a recommendation from this current council via this committee to the next council to say that the information that they will have to then actually formally sign off to audit is appropriate. The letter that we're asking you to approve today isn't going to Audit New Zealand as such. It just goes to the next council so that they have comfort with what they will then obviously have to sign off formally to Audit New Zealand. So you'll see that hopefully with that we've made that a little bit clearer roles and responsibilities up in the new recommendations that you'll see on the board. So with that, I'll hand over to Audit New Zealand and they can give you an update of where they're at.
Thank you, Clarence, and Nora, again, welcome. Appreciate your comments, please.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, so just an update on the audit plan. The last time we spoke about the audit plan was in draft, so it has been confirmed that we will be looking at the greenhouse gas emissions measure as we've selected that as a material measure. So that will most probably lead to an emphasis of matter, just because, and that will be sector-wide on everybody that reports on the greenhouse gas emissions due to the uncertainty of what's included and how it's calculated. So, and that's a standard, the emphasis of matter. The other emphasis of matter that we're looking at will be on the three waters, or the impact of the three waters, which is no surprise. And again, that will be a sector-wide issue. The other new measure that we included in our audit plan that we selected as a significant measure this year will be the water loss. And because you have quite a substantial amount of your network that's not, that doesn't have water meters, there's a lot of uncertainty in the estimation, and that will maybe lead to a qualification. We're working with our technical team with that. There's some precedents down Wellington Way where they had the same issues, so we're just working with our technical team, making sure that we have sufficient disclosure and information in the annual report on that. On our staffing, as you know, we've been highlighting a few things. Initially, we wanted to get the audit sort of to a point where we could give clearance by the end of September. That unfortunately not happened. We did do some of our interim work, but not the full interim. That's why we didn't issue an interim report. If there was any major issues on the control environment, we would have highlighted that immediately to the finance team and also to this committee. So there was nothing of great concern that we had to highlight that in a specific report. So that's why all the findings will be incorporated into our final management report. And then, so for the audit, the final audit, we are starting on Monday. We've got a full team booked. We've actually got quite a lot of people coming for a shorter period of time. Now, with that may lead to some inefficiency or some pressure on the finance team, and we'll try and manage that to get the full audit done by the middle of October to the end of October. That's the aim. If we need to reduce the number of people that we have on the team at one given time, we'll try and extend it. But definitely the aim is to get it done, the audit done, by the end of October. If we need to go on, at least there is a month and a bit to actually get to the point where we can sign off. So it is quite a high priority client for us, Hamilton City and all the city councils. So it is definitely, we're aiming to get that done. Just on our focus areas, again, we're starting on that on Monday, will be the software as a service. So we're looking at that specifically. We're looking at the revaluations, because that's a lot of assumptions and judgment flowing into that. So we've got people starting out on that immediately. And then also there's some changes in accounting policies and that, which we're just reviewing the overall disclosure around that. So, Nadia, is there anything that I missed that you think you need to highlight?
I think we cover all. I think from the draft, what we're waiting on the draft, only change I just want to emphasize is that we added that measure, the climate change measure, because we had to consult with the technical team, and also just to get the dates sorted when we can assign whatever. And we actually just got in the last week, we got our team locked in, so we are in a good position now to continue with the audit.
So your planned signing date, Norde, is what date?
I think that it's on the 6th of December, around
6th
there.
of December, yeah.
That's when the first council meeting will be for the new elected council. The 8th of December.
Sorry, Norde?
8th.
Oh, the 8th.
December.
Thank you very much. Yeah, okay, that's good. Thank you for that. Right, look, I just proposed we have the debate in double, I guess, first can we just deal with the audit comments, please, and then secondly, I'd like to come back to the letter of rep and indeed the main thrust of Tracy's comments around the letter of representation. Any comments on the audit, the annual report process, please, at this stage? Rob?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I've got a couple of questions. One is around the uncertainty of uncertainty comment on Three Waters. As I've read in the newspaper, the Office of the Auditor General has raised some concerns about the Three Waters, and some of the concerns that he's raised are similar to outstanding queries that this council has with DIA on exactly the same matters. Will that alignment, if there is alignment there, will that be covered off in your uncertainty around Three Waters, in the sense that this council won't take blame or a rap for the uncertainty that exists when we are fully aware of a good deal of that uncertainty?
So normally there will be some sector guidance about the disclosures that will be included. In our audit opinion, we will refer to the disclosure that's made in the annual report, and that will be, as I say, based on sector guidance. It all depends on where we're at that stage with the known facts.
Yep.
If there's no uncertainty, then there won't be emphasis of matter. It will
Okay.
maybe just be a subsequent event or something else.
Yep.
That may be a different qualification or a different emphasis of matter, but at the moment it will be sector-wide based on what's known.
So the wording that you use, if you do use the wording in the audit report, is likely to be similar for us as it will be for a number of other affected councils, rather than specific to HCC.
That's correct,
Okay,
yes.
okay. And Chair, my other question is around the management rep letter, but do you want to hold that one?
Just hold that, because
Yep,
we'll come back to
okay,
that, Rob.
okay.
I'd just like to deal, just
Yep,
like deal with
yep.
the auditors.
No,
That
that's
sounds
fine.
terrible, doesn't it? Kieran, I see your hands up.
Yeah, look, I'd like to clarify a couple of points, and I just open with a statement that a verbal update is not ideal. You noted that if there were any significant items in the interim audit, you would have provided us with a written report from the interim audit. But then I think I heard you say that you're considering qualifying the audit opinion, which to me seems a significant item. Can you just confirm, please?
So that must still go through the process, through you, Mr. Chair. So at the moment, based on the guidance, this is a new measure that we've selected this year. Previously, we have not selected the water losses as a material measure for Hamilton City. Based on guidance from our sector, that was included in the audit plan. We are looking at the reports. We've received the reports from finance to see how that is calculated, how that's estimated, and based on that, we will go to our technical team to see if that may lead to a qualification or not. It's not at that process where I can report on that. It's just more of a heads up that that is the process that we're working through, so that there's no surprise if that leads to a qualification later on.
And you would have picked up an interim.
Okay, so it's a qualification rather than an emphasis of matter.
That may be it. As I say, we still need to go through the process. With the emphasis of matter, it's normally where there's some uncertainty where the qualification is, or there's a lack of audit evidence, or there's no alternative audit procedures that you can perform to get assurance that the reported result is correct. We can't say it's incorrect, but we can't say it's correct.
Okay, so this is the first I've heard of this issue, which is surprising. I don't recall it being one of the areas of focus in your audit plan, which is yet to be finalised. I see that was at the front of the pack, but we still haven't got those dates confirmed. And so I'm surprised that I would be hearing about this for the first time now.
So I can say that it was in the draft audit plan, and it was highlighted in the original discussion with council when it was presented as a draft, said that these are the 3 new measures, the greenhouse gas emissions that was included, which we were deciding if it should be included or not. It has now been confirmed that that will be included as a measure, and then the water loss was highlighted as a new measure as well, based on the number of metered sections in Hamilton.
Okay, I stand corrected on that. I still can't see, I'm flicking through the report and I still can't see that there in your audit matters.
It's under material measures on my audit plan, page 16.
Right, okay, so you've covered it generally under materiality.
That's correct, yeah, under the water supply measures.
Right, okay. So, but you now have, after doing your interim audit, you have concerns over the certainty or evidence supporting those measures.
So no, we haven't completed any of our work on any of the non-financial reporting. With our interims, we normally look at the systems and system descriptions, making sure that we can, and control environment, to make sure that our audit approach is either controls-based or a more substantive approach, if that makes sense.
Okay, right, I think I've got to the bottom of that one. And just my other point of clarification, I think I heard you say that you're expecting to finish the audit in October, but we're looking for an 8th of December sign-off, is that right?
That's correct at the moment, because of the way that the council, when the new council comes into play. So we can't guarantee that the old council, that we'll be in a position to sign off with the old council, and then first new council date is on the 8th of December, which is the first council meeting for the new council.
Right, okay. It's just, there is quite a time delay between October and December. I'm just thinking about subsequent events in between those 2 dates. The timing's not completely ideal, but if it's I guess it is what it is. And I would just like to confirm that our meeting dates line up with that. I know that we've got a workshop in November, but I'm not aware of any committee meeting prior to the 8th of December for us to recommend the annual report to council. So we'll need to note that and take it offline to make sure it works. But I guess this line of questioning just outlines the unideal nature of having a verbal report from the auditors, and one would hope next year that we get back into more robust processes.
Thanks for that, Karen. I suspect you probably heard the message, Clarence. So appreciate that point. Karen, if you can just imagine, please, Clarence, that hearing for the first time in a public meeting qualification is a risk, or a probable risk, it does elicit a reaction. So I'll let you ponder that. Right, can we please, if there's no other questions then around the annual report, you have got one around the annual report, Rob?
The management.
Yep, we'll get there in a tick. I just want to check with Tracy. So we've dealt with the annual report. Thank you for that, Clarence and Norde. The letter of rep, as you've quite rightly pointed out, is one that I have asked actually, or encouraged to be put on the agenda on the basis that primarily the accountability should fall to the people that are accountable for that year, which is obviously the 21-22 year. A new council, in my experience, and I've seen a few elections now, feels less likely to want to take accountability for their predecessor's year, but yet legally they have to, because we've just been talking about an audit sign-off effectively 8th of December. So the intention here is that we just spend a few moments looking at the letter of rep, which the council, both the Mayor and the Chief Executive, are obliged to make to the auditor now, so that we can perhaps pass the message on, as is anticipated by this amended resolution, to the new council. Tracy, thank you for your report on this one. I do appreciate the way you've broken it down. You've reflected a response against the key elements of the of that letter, and indeed who's responsible. Often you, I see, but I know there are others of your colleagues there, in terms of the ability for that assertion to be made. So it's a very helpful report. So at this stage, Rob, I will start with you. I'd like to, if members have a question, that would be great, please.
Thank you. My understanding with management rep letters is that they are normally signed off contemporaneously with the audit report being issued, or a day before, or days difference. So I'm just have a concern here that if this committee and ultimately council recommend the Mayor and CE sign this rep letter, and the new council, and I assume that there'll be another management rep letter required to be signed off on the 7th of December, or whenever. I just have a concern as to whether there's any legal issues if the new council decided not to sign the management representation letter and not to accept the fact that it had previously been signed off, or part of it had previously been signed off by a different council.
If I can just answer that question, Tracy, sorry.
I'm sure there's a precedent there somewhere.
We modified the recommendation that now does not ask the Chief Executive and the Mayor to sign the
so
letter.
this is...
So the new recommendation is on... Because to your point, even if we did, it would become irrelevant when the new council came in and we had full information to sign the next letter of... just if you take a look at that recommendation up,
okay, so what is the new recommend? Just to save me having to digest it.
Can I go through, because actually I wrote it, with the help of Morale and David. So it's exactly your point, which is that the only letter of relevance to the auditor is the one that's signed with the receipt of the opinion and the adoption of the annual report, which should be dated the 8th of December.
Yep.
This is entirely for us as an outgoing committee to provide a level of assurance to the new council that as far as we know, as of at this date, that letter of rep is okay. Yeah. But there, and this goes back to a previous point Karen's made, which is there may be events or matters, or there may be specific representations as Clarence and Norde do their audit that they will want in the finalised letter. We can't control that, so the final letter will only be determined with the auditors around about the 8th of December. So what we're doing here is that we are recognising that the new council will legally have to deal with our accountability, if I can call it that. So we've at least to use that phrase, but that's what it really comes down to. That's B. So we note that the next council will be asked to complete the audit requirements in relation to the audit report, which is letter of rep, and amongst them will be letter of rep. Notes that the annual report is effectively the accountability of the current council. And as such, the 1922 Council have considered the representations required of the Council at the point of adopting the annual report and receiving the opinion. So again, going back to the papers, there are things like the letter is attesting to the absence of fraud, or that we've let them know of all of it. We're in the best position relative to a new Council to be able to make that representation. notes that having considered the probable required representations as of today, which is that draft letter, the committee provides assurance to the new incoming council that a rep can be signed subject to any matters that may arise between today's date and the date of signing. So we're trying to do it without doing it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, Rob?
Yeah, it still just creates that uncertainty that the new council may decide not to sign it off.
And honestly, we have to leave that.
And that's a risk, but we can't mitigate that.
Yeah, we have to leave that to the new council.
Yep.
I won't say what Clarence would do if he didn't get a letter of rep. In my day, I wouldn't have signed the opinion.
Yeah, no, I realise that.
And you can, the client will suffer the consequences of no opinion. But Clarence, we won't ask you what you do. Let's not speculate. The point is, I agree. This is an attempt to try and give a level of comfort to the new council that they can indeed conclude the responsibilities around the last year's annual.
And through the chair, there is continuity of the external members of the Strategic Risk and Assurance Committee, which can offer some comfort to the new council.
No, I appreciate that too. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Are there any other questions then around the proposed, and it's an amended motion, but I'll take it as a substantive motion if we can be quick to this, but actually more importantly, the letter or indeed the points that Tracy's made in her paper? There being none then, given probably the motion's mine, I think I will move from the chair, or perhaps I should say the deputy chair's role, these motions. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Rob. Is there any discussion on the motion? There being none, I'll put it then. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Those against? It's carried. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And thank you, Tracy, for that work. I think it's important to be able to pass it on. Can we move to the compliance reporting update, please? Thanks, Mish.
Thank you, Chair. I'll take the report as read and just note that we have attached the reviewed protected disclosures policy for feedback from the committee as part of your terms of reference. If there are any questions.
Right, thank you. And just for clarity, and I think I'm only reflecting here what's in the paper, the critical thing is the Protected Disclosure Act has been amended, and this attempts to move the policy into alignment with that, primarily stronger protections around the person making the disclosure, correct?
Correct.
Brilliant. Okay. Thank you for that. Are there any questions from the members in terms of either the intent or indeed the wording of the policy which you have in front of you? Yes, Karen?
Yeah, I've just got just a couple of queries on the or feedback on the policy. Just checking I'm not on mute. Yep, great. Can you just remind me, is this in tandem with it? Do you have a separate speak up policy, or does this policy attempt to cover both?
The policy is focusing only on the protected disclosures part of what we do. I don't have any details at the moment on whether we run a separate policy on speaking up per se.
Right, okay. Because this is quite a defined process and quite a high threshold for serious wrongdoing. Having another policy to cover other, complaints or feedback is a useful process. So, but I'll leave that for you to have a look into. On page 154 of Diligent, page 2 of the document, just under the principles, I wondered whether it would be worthwhile noting that one of the principles that you strive for is a timely response, because that comes through loud and clear in the legislation, and in fact there's some statutory timeframes to adhere to. So I wonder whether that should be noted as one of the principles. Just I wondered whether a statement, I've seen another protected disclosure policies, a statement around the treatment of malicious or vexatious allegations. And of course, we've got to be careful with the wording because you don't want to discourage disclosure, but you also need to make it clear that if it is a malicious or vexatious complaint, then they're not guaranteed that confidentiality, and in fact it could become an employment matter. So I'm happy to provide some wording from another policy that I've seen, which I quite like the wording of. If you like, I'm happy to do that offline.
Thank you, that would be helpful.
Great. No, thank you, Karen. That's a really important point about how do you find the balance? I mean, the encouragement is to promote support for the person making the disclosure, but equally there needs to be protections the other way.
Making the comment to support Karen, especially in the days of digital media, social media and so on, some of the platforms themselves and all other organisations are making the owner of the page accountable for truth and for behaviour of even people who comment on their page. So if you let someone slander someone else on your page, you know, you can... So I think that's the world we live in, where we have to be even more vigilant, because any comment that goes out can be spread wide and far within minutes and do a lot of harm to the well-being of people. I'm not talking about myself here, I'm talking about in general, and especially staff. And we've observed during our time on council, through our Facebook pages and LinkedIn and whatever else, staff get named and shamed on there as well. And it's and they see it or note it, or someone sees it. And, you know, because we can't sit on social media 24/7 monitoring it, I think we do need proper safety nets for their well-being, practical guidance. So, I think it's excellent. Thank you.
Thank you there, Paula. If I could just give some advice, that particularly flicks over then into the Code of Conduct. That particularly flicks over into the Code of Conduct, which you'll consider an induction, which is the social media aspect, which is a key part of the code. The question here is what constitutes a serious wrongdoing, and that needs to be factored into that. But your point is still well made.
So a question to you on that, because I think you're right. So we made a substantial improvement to the Code of Conduct not that long ago. It took longer than we hoped, but it's with us now for that express purpose. Have you?
I haven't seen your current one. Sorry. No.
Okay, so we need to get that to Bruce and Karen, because that does attempt to tackle that whole issue. And then you can give us some feedback as to whether it goes far enough, because I guess when we did it at council, Rob, Maxine, Mark, there was a range of views around the room as to how far to go with that when you versus free speech type of conundrum.
It's a very difficult one.
You can send them the copy.
I will send that through.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Obviously, you're waiting on Mary Hill to provide comment. You haven't received that, obviously, at this stage.
I have received some feedback from her.
Right.
There's a couple of minor tweaks around clarifying what we mean by an employee.
Yep.
And she had some questions just around the flow chart that we have as an appendix, which we'll tweak. She had obviously a particular interest in that, because she will have some obligations under the policy if she's notified.
Is there any more expected from this committee? The request is that we receive the report. Are you seeking any greater endorsement from the committee, or is this just part of your consultation process and presumably council finalising the policy?
It's a management report, so the feedback that we've had from today will go back to BSLT and ELT before we finalise the policy and then socialise it. So that's everything that I need from this committee.
Right, thank you. So we can move a motion that we receive the report as management. You've taken on board our comments. Karen's going to come back to you with a couple of suggested wordings. You've got Mary Hill's comments, which you'll take on board, and that's fine then.
Correct.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Well, for the sake of the discussion, I don't think I've got anybody else wanting to speak. I'll move from the chair that we receive Mish's report. Thank you, Maxine. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise their hand. Those against? It's carried. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Can we move to the Strategic Risk and that's this committee's annual self-review. What, I threw out my own committee name, I'm being slavish. Kieran, I wonder, is it logical for you to lead off on this one, please?
Yep. So I'll assume that the report has been read, but I'd just highlight a couple of points in it. Firstly, I think it's a good opportunity to reflect back on our work, not only over the last year, but throughout the triennium. So, I think when I look back to this, 3 years ago, I think we've made some significant progress on our risk management. It seems to be much more fully embedded within the organisation and adding some value to the conversations within the organisation, moving away from compliance into that integration phase, which is really pleasing to see. And we've seen the same with health, safety and wellness management. We've got some good systems in place. We've heard today about the new software rolling out, and there's been some really great work around contractor management and other systems and supporting through resourcing as well. So that's been really pleasing to see. And towards the end of this term, our focus is now turned to cyber security. It's a growing trend in all organisations, and the internal audits have honed our focus on that. So that will be a focus for the committee going forward. So with the new council coming in, that's obviously an opportunity to look at the structure of the committees and the terms of reference of the committee. I personally think that the terms of reference have, for this committee, have worked pretty well. The areas that the incoming council might like to consider are areas of health, safety and wellness and cyber security. It's where those items sit is always organisation specific, I guess. Should they be in the Strategic Risk and Audit Committee, or should they be kept at council level so that all elected members are across those really crucial issues? Or with regards to health, safety and wellness, should it be a subcommittee of itself so that you can co-opt independent expertise if necessary? Although in saying that, I do note that there is the governance committee that somewhat fills that role. So that's my summary of the report, but I would also like to use this slot to sincerely thank the members of the committee over the triennium, and particularly those members, those elected members that are retiring this round. You've been on the committee for some time and I've really enjoyed your input, so I sincerely thank you for your service. That's it from me.
Thank you, Kieran. Appreciate that, and thank you for the time you've taken to do a very important thing, which is an annual review of the committee. Members, are there any comments that you would like to make on Kieran's review? She prompts a couple of questions. You may have views. Is there anything you'd like to say? No? That's good. It's a clear report. JD, were you going to say something?
Just say a generic comment of, well done from a team perspective, and especially reiterating Paula's comments around the value of having independent people in this space. So Kieran and yourself, so kia ora.
Thank you, Jane. And Kieran, that is important. Mayor Paula did actually reflect your sentiment about the value of independence, but particularly your chairing, Kieran. So it's great that even if it's only by way digitally, you're able to hear that virtually at the stage it was said. Okay. Then.
And Chair, I'd just like to say probably now is the best time, since we're about to go into PX, that I'm sorry I couldn't attend in person, particularly given that it is the last meeting of this under this council, and I would like to thank you, Bruce, for stepping into the chair role. It is a whole lot easier when you can see those in the chamber when you're chairing. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kieran. I want to move to the motion. Can I ask you to look at the board, everybody, because it is, again, a late amendment, but it was just to reflect B there, which is that not only do we receive the report, we're only reporting to ourselves, but actually we want council to receive the report. Clearly, we're all well aware that we go out of existence on the 8th or morning of the 9th, doesn't matter which, of October. There's obviously some considerations here by the new council, and clearly Kieran's report, endorsed by us going to council, should be an important factor as they consider what are the arrangements going forward. So a reasonably simple little change, but one I just want to draw to your attention. Kieran, I wonder if you'd like to move this motion, seen at your report.
Yep. Thank you.
And I will second it, okay? So with that, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Or, sorry, raise their hands. Those against? It's carried. Thank you. Might I say, members, we're down to the quorum, so you've got to stay in the room, okay? That's what it comes down to. Rightio.
Lock the doors.
Lock the doors. You're not allowed to go. Okay. That's right. Rob, sorry, you're here for life. You can't go. Okay. Can I move then, please, to the motion to move into public excluded? Again, the reasons and the nature of the topics are well explained. So from the chair, I'll move that we resolve to move into public excluded. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Maxine. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against? It's carried. Thank you. We just need to wait a couple of minutes while